Hi friends, continuing to the chapter Wings of the Fire, an autobiography of Apj Abdul Kalam. He visited the DFDL in April 1982 to admire himself with his potential worksite. The director of DRDL, then SL Banzel, took him around and introduced him to the senior scientist in the laboratory. DRDL was working on the 5 staff projects and 16 competent build-up projects. They were also involved in several technology and oriented activities with a view to gain lead time for the development of indigenous missile system in the future. It was particularly impressed by their effects on the twin 3-ton liquid propellant rocket engine. Meanwhile, Anna University Madras conferred the honorary degrees of Doctor of the Science on me. It has been nearly 25 years since he acquired the degree in aeronautical engineering. He was happy that Anna University has recognized his effort in the field of the rocketry. But what had pleased him most was recognition of the value of his work in the academic circle. To delight himself, the honorary doctorate degree was awarded as a convocational precedent over by Professor Raja Ramanna. He joined DRDL on 1st July 1982. Very soon he realized that this laboratory was still haunted by the winding up of the Devil Missiles project. Many excellent professors had not yet recovered from the disappointment. People outside the scientific world may find it difficult to comprehend how a scientist feels when the umbilical cord to his work is suddenly snapped. For reasons totally aligned to this understanding and the interest, the general mood and the work tempo at DRDL reminded him of Samuel Taylor's poem The Rims of the Ancient Mariner. Day after day, we struck nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. He found almost all his senior colleagues living with the pain of their dashed hopes. There was a whispering feeling that the scientist of this laboratory has been cheated by the senior officials in the Ministry of Defense. It was clearer to him that the burial of the devil was essential for the rise of the hope and the vision. When about a month later, Admiral O.S. Dawson, then the Chief of the Naval Staff, visited DRDL, he used it as an opportunity to make a point with his team. The Tertial Coal Vehicle, that is TCV, project has been hanging fire for quite some times. It was conceived as a single core vehicle with a certain common subsystems to meet the requirements of the services for a quick missile which could be launched from helicopter or fixed wing aircraft. He empathized the skimming role of the core vehicle to the Admiral Dawson. He focused not on its technical characteristics but on its battlefield capacities, and he highlighted the production plans. The message was loud and clear to his new associates: do not make anything which cannot sell later, and do not spend your life on making one thing only. Missile develops in a multi-dimensional business. If you remain in any one dimension for a long time, you will get stuck. In the initial few months at DRDL, very largely inactive, he had read a St. Joseph's that an electron may appear as a particle or wave depending on how you look at it. If you ask a particle question, it will give you a particular answer. If you ask a wave question, it will give you a wave answer. It is not described and explained our goals, but also made them an interplay between work and ourselves. He still recalls quoting Reynold Fisher at one of his meetings, "Sweetness we taste in a piece of sugar is neither a property of the sugar nor a property of yourself. We are producing the experience of the sweetness in the process of interacting with the sugar." Very good work on a surface to a surface missile with a vertical rise return, straight line, climb ballistic path had been done by that time. It was astonished to see the determination of the DRDL workforce, who, in spite of a prematuring winding up of their earlier project, were eager to go ahead. He arranged reviews for his various substations to arrange and preserve specifications. To the horror of many old-timers in DRDO, he started inviting people from the Indian Institute of Science, Indian Institute of Technology Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and many other educational institutes where the related experts could be found. He felt that a stuffy work center of DRDL needed a breath of fresh air. Once we opened the window wide, the light of the scientific talents began to pour in. One more ancient manner came to his mind. Swiftly flew the ship, riding gently on coming tide. Sometimes in the beginnings of 1983, Professor Davins visited DRDL. He reminded him of his own advice to be that almost a decade ago you have been to dream before your dream come true. Some people strike towards whatever it is that they want in the life. Others shuttle their feet and never get started because they don't know what they want and do not know how to find it either. ISRO was lucky to have had a Professor Sarabhai and Professor Davins at the helm, leaders who included their goals, made their missions larger than their lives, and could then inspire their entire workforce. DRDL has not been so lucky. This excellent laboratory played a truncated role that did not reflect its exciting or the potential capabilities or even fulfill the expectation in the South Block. He told Professor Darwin about the high professionals but slightly bewildered team I have. Professor Darwin responded with his characteristic bored smile while could be interrupted in any way one chose. In order to accelerate the pace of R&D activities at DRDL, it was impressive that decisions on the vital scientific techniques and the technological problems be taken quickly. Throughout his career, he jealously pursued openness in scientific manners. It has been seen from very close quarters the decay and the disintegration that go with the management through closed-door consultations and secret nebulizations. He always despited and restricts such efforts. So, the first major decision which he took was to create a forum of semi-scientists where important matters could be discussed and debate as a collective endurance. Thus, a high-level body called the Miss Technology Committee was formed within DRDL. The concept management by participating was evaluate an earnest effort we made to involve middle level scientists and engineers in the management activities of the laboratory. Day of a debate and a week of thinking finally culminated in it. Long term guided mission development program I have heard somewhere. Now where are going? The great things in the world is not knowing so much where we stand and in what directions are moving. What if we did not have a technology? Might the Western countries we knew we have to attain the mighty that this destination was our driving force. To draw up a clear, well-defined missile development program for the production of indigenous missiles, a committee was constituted under a chairmanship. The members were J.P. Marshall, then the chairman of Bharat Dynamics Limited, Hyderabad, N.R. Nair, K.P. Cooper, K.S. Venkatraman. We drafted a paper for the perusal of the Cabinet Committee for Political Affairs. The paper was given its final shape after consulting the representative of the Defence Services. We estimated an expenditure of about 30 crores, spread over a period of 12 years. Development programs often get stuck by the time they really like the production stage, mainly because of lacking of fund. And he wanted to get funds to develop and produce two missiles, a low-level quick reaction tactical core vehicle and a medium-range surface-to-surface weapon system. We plan to make a surface-to-air medium-range weapon system with a multi-target handling capability during the second phase. Our DL has been known for its pioneering work in the field of anti-tank missiles. We propose to develop a third generation anti-tank guided missiles having fire and forget capabilities. All my colleagues were pleased with the proposal. They saw an opportunity to pursue refresh activities initiated long ago. But I was not entirely satisfied. He longed to review his buried dream of a re-entry experiment launch vehicle. He persuaded his colleagues to take up the technology development project to generate data for use in the design of heat slides. These shields were required for building up the capability to make long-range missiles in the future. He made a presentation in the South Block. The presentation was presided over by the Defence Minister of the time, R. Venkatraman, and attended by three service chiefs: General Krishna Rao, Air Chief Marshal Singh, and Admiral Dawson. The Cabinet Secretary Krishna Rao Sahib, Defence Secretary S.M. Ghosh, and Secretary Expenditure R. Ganpati were present. Everyone seems to have all sorts of doubt about our capabilities, about the feasibility and availability of the required technology infrastructures, about the viability, the schedule, and the cost. Dr. Arunachalam stood by me like a rock throughout the entire questions answer sessions. Members were spectacle and appreciations of drift within their field was common among the scientists, although some questions or ambitious proposals, everyone, even the doubting Thomases, were very excited about the idea of India having their own missile system. In the end, we were asked by the Defence Minister Venkatraman to meet him in the evening about 3 hours later. We spent the intervening time working on the permutual and the combination. If the sanctioned only rupees 100 crores, how could we allocate it? Suppose they give us 200 crores, then what would we do? When we met a defense minister in the evening, we had a lunch and we were going to get some funds at any rate. But when he suggested that we launch an integrated guided missile developed program instead of making a missile in the faces, we could not believe our ears. We were quite dumbfounded by the defense minister's suggestion after a long pause. Dr. Arunachalam replied, "We beg for the time to rethink and return, sir. You come back tomorrow morning, please." The defense minister replied, "It was a reminiscence of Professor Sarabhai's zeal and vision." That night, Dr. Arunachalam and I labored together on reworking our plan. We worked out some very important extension and improvements in our own proposal, taking all the varieties such as designs, fabrications, system integration, qualification, experimental flights, evolutions, updating, user trials, predictability, quality, reliability, and the financial viability into the accounts. We then integrated them into a single function of total accountability in order to meet the needs of the country's armed force with an indigenous endeavor. We worked out the concept of the design, development, production, concurrency, and proposed the participation of the users and inspection agencies right from drawing board stage. We also suggested a methodology to achieve state-of-the-art system after all the 3 years of the development activities. We wanted to deliver contemporary missiles to our service and not some outdated inventory of the weapons. It was a very exciting challenge that had been thrown to us. By the time we finished the work, it was already morning. Suddenly at the breakfast table, we remembered that we have to attend the niece Zamila's wedding at Rameshwaram that evening. I thought it was already too late to do anything. Even if I could catch the Madras flight later in the day, how could I reach Rameshwaram from there? There was no airline link between Madras and Madurai, from where he could board the evening train to Rameshwaram. A pang of a guilt dampened the spirit. Was it fair? I asked myself. To forget my family commitments and the obligation, Zamila was more like a daughter to him. Tough of missing her wedding because of a professional preoccupation at Delhi was very disastrous. He finished breakfast and late for the meeting. When he met Defense Minister Venkatraman and showed him our revised proposal, he was visibly pleased. The proposal of the missile developed project has been turned overnight into a blueprint of an integrated program with a far-reaching consequences. It would have a wide-ranging technologies spin-offs and was exactly what the defense minister had in his mind previous evening. Notwithstanding the great respect we had for the defense minister, he was not really sure if he would clear out the entire proposal, but he did. It was absolutely delighted. The defense minister stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. Turning to him, he said, "Since I brought you here, I was expecting you to come with something like this. I am happy to see you work." In a split second, the mystery surrounded the clearance of his appointment as a director of DRDL in 1982 was cleared. So it was the Defense Minister Venkatraman who had brought him in. Bowing in thanks, he turned towards the door and he heard Dr. Arunachalam telling the minister about the Jamila's wedding being scheduled for that evening at Rameshwaram. It was amazed that Dr. Arunachalam should bring this matter before the minister. Why would a person of his stature sitting in all power South Block be concerned about a wedding which was to take place on a far-flung island in a small house or a mosque street? He have always had a high regards for Dr. Arunachalam. He had, together with a command over languages as he displayed on his occasion, an uncanny presence of his mind. He was overwhelmed when the defense minister located on Air Force helicopter doing sorties between the Madras and Madurai later in the days to take me to the Madurai as soon as I disembarked at the Madras from the regular Indian Airlines flight, which was leaving Delhi in an hour time. Dr. Arunachalam told him that you have earned this for your hard work of last 6 months. Flying towards the Madras, he scribbled on his back of his boarding pass as, "Who never climbed the wavy luggage can such a foot explorer the purple territories on Rameshwaram store." A Air Force helicopter landed close to Indian Airlines crash. As soon as it arrived from Delhi, within the next few minutes it was on the way to Madurai. The Air Force commanded there was a kind enough to take him to the railway station where the train at the Rameshwaram was just about to roll on to the platform. He was in Rameshwaram well in the time for Jamila's wedding. He blessed his brother's daughter with a father's love. The defense minister put up his proposal before the cabinet and saw it through. His recommendation on his proposal were accepted and an unprecedented amount of rupees 3,088 crores was sanctioned for his purpose. Thus was born India's prestigious integrated guided missile development program, later abbreviated to IGMDP. When he presented the government sanction letter before the mission technology committees at DRDL, they were enthusiastic with fire and action. The proposed project was Christianized in the accordance with the spirit of Indian self-reliance. Thus, the surface-to-surface weapon system became Prithvi, the earth, and the tactical core vehicle called as Trishul, the trident of Lord Shiva. The surface to the air defense system was named as Akash, that is sky, and the anti-tank missile project Nag, that is Cobra. They gave the name Agni, the fire, to his long cherished dream of Rex. Dr. Arunachalam came to DRDL and formally launched the IGMDP on 27 July 1983. It was a great event in which every single employee of DRDL participated. Everybody who was somebody's in Indian aerospace research was invited. A large number of scientists from the other laboratories and organizations, professors from the academic institution, representative of the armed force, production centers and the inspection authorities who were our business partners now were present on this occasion. A closed secure TV network has to be pressed into operation to ensure proper communication between the participants, for we have no signal space to accommodate all the invitees. This was the second most significant day in his career, the next only to 18th July 1980, when SSLV has launched Rogini into Earth's orbit. The launch of IGMDP was like a bright flash of the Indian scientific firmament. Mission technology has been considered the domain of a few selected nations in the world. People were curious to see how, with what India had at that point of time, we are going to achieve all that was promised. The magnitude of IGMPD was really unprecedented in the country, and the scheduled projects were quite cautious by the norms and the standard prevailing in the Indian RD establishment. It was fully aware that the obtaining sanctions of the program could be at the best seen as only 10% of the work done. To get it going would be quite in the different matter, although the more you have, the more there is to maintain. Now that we had been given all the necessary monies and the freedom to proceed, he had taken the team forwarded and fulfilled the promise that was made. What would be needed to realize this mission program from the design to the deployment stage? Excellent manpower was available. Money has been sanctioned and some infrastructures also excited. What was lacking then? What does a project needs to be success apart from these three vital inputs? From his SLB3 experience, he thought he knew the answer. The curse was going to be out mastery over missile technology. He expected nothing from the abroad. Technology is a group activity, and we would need leaders who could not only put their hearts and soul into the missile program but also carry along with them hundreds of other engineers and scientists. We knew we had to be prepared to encounter numerous contradictions and projectical obstacles that were present in the participating laboratories. We would have to encounter that the exciting attitudes of a public sector units which believed that their performance would never be tested. The whole system, its people, procedures, infrastructures would have to learn to extend itself. We decided to achieve something that was a way behind our collective national capability and him. For one had no illusions about the fact that unless his team worked on the basis of a proportions or probability, nothing would be achieved. The most remarkable things about the DRDL was its large pool of highly talented people, many of whom are unfortunately full of egotism, rebelliousness. Unfortunately, they had not even accumulated enough experience to make them confident about their own judgment. On the whole, they would discuss the matter very enthusiastically, but would finally accept that what a select few says. They would unquestioningly believe in outside specialists. A particularly interested person he met in DRDL was A.V. Rangarao. He was very particular and had an impressive personality. His usual garb consists of a red necktie, which checked out and a loose trousers. He would wear this in the hot climate of the Hyderabad, where even a long-sleeved shirt and his shoes were considered an avoidable inconvenience. With his thick white beard and a pipe clamp between his teeth, there was a certain aurora around his extremely gifted but rather egocentric individuals. He consulted Rangarao on revamping the existing managers' system to achieve an optimum utilization of human resources. Rangarao has a series of meetings with the scientists during sharing out visions of developing indigenistic missiles technology and explaining the different aspects of IGMDP. After prolonged discussion, he decided to reorganize the laboratory into a technology-oriented subjects. He needed to accommodate a matrix type of a structure from the execution of various activity needed for the projects. In less than 4 months, 400 scientists began to work on the missile program. During this period, the most important task before him was the selection of the project directors to lead the individual missile projects. He had a very large pool of talent. In fact, it was a market of plenty. The question was whom to pick: a go-getter, a planner, a maver, a director, or a team man. He had to get rid the right type of a leader who could clearly visualize the goal and channelize the energy of his team members who would be working at different work centuries in pursuit of their own individual goals. It was a difficult game, some rules of which he had learned while working in ISRO's high priority projects for 2 decades. The wrong choice would jeopardize the entire future of the program. He had a detailed discussion with a large number of prospective scientists and the engineers. He wanted these 5 project directors to train another 25 project directors and team leaders of tomorrow. Many of his senior colleagues, naming them would be an affair because it could be only by his imagination, tried to befriend him during this period. He respected their concern for a lonely man, but avoided anyone's close contact. Through loyalty to a friend, one can be easily led it doing something that it is not the best interest of the organization. Perhaps the main motive behind his isolation was his desire to escape from the demands of the relationship, which he considered very difficult in comparison to making rockets. All he desired was to be true to his way of his life, to uphold the science of the rocketry in his country, and to retire with a clean conscience. He took quite some time and did a lot of hard work thinking to decide who should leave the project first. He examined the working style of many scientists before making his decision. He thinks some of his observations may interest him. A basic aspects of a person's working style in how he plans and organizes tasks. At one extreme is a cautious planner who carefully spells out each step before making any move, with a sharp eyes for what can be possibly go wrong. He tries to cover all that continuous. At the other end is the fast mover who weaves and dogs without a plan. Inspired by an idea, the fast movers is always ready for the action. Another aspect of the person working style is control, the energy and the attention devoted to ensuring that things happen in certain ways. At one extreme is the tight collectors and the strict administrators with the frequent checkpoints. Rulers and the policies are to be followed with religious favors. At the opposite end are those who move with freedom and flexibility. They have little patience for the bureaucracy. They delegate easily and give their subordinates wild attitude for moment. He wanted the leaders who tread the middle path, who could control without stifling, dissent or being rigid. He wanted men who had the capability to grow with possibilities, with the patience to explore all possible alternatives, with the wisdom to apply old principles to the new situations. People with the skills to negotiate their way forward. He wanted them to be accommodating, to be willing to share their powers with the others and works in the team. Delegating good jobs, assimilating fresh opinion, respecting intelligent people and listening to the wise counsel, they would have to be able to sort out things amicably and take responsibility for slip-ups. Above all, they should be able to take failures in their stride and share in both success as well as in the failure. His research for someone to lead the Prithvi project ended with Colonel V.J. Sundaram, who belonged to the EME Corps of the Indian Army with a postgraduate degree in aeronautical engineering and expertise in mechanical vibrations. Sundaram was head of a structures group of DRDL. He founded in him a readiness to experiment with new ways of resolving conflicting points of view. He was an experimental and an innovator in teamwork. He had an extraordinary capability for evaluating alternating way of operations. He could suggest moving forward into new terrains that could lead to a solution which had not been preserved earlier. Though a particular goals might be clear to a project leader and he may be capable of giving adequate direction for accomplishing it, there can be a resistance from the subordinates if the goal makes no sense to them. Therein lies the importance of a leader who provides effective work directions. He thought that the project directors of the Prithvi would be the first to make the decision with the production agencies and the armed force, and the Sundaram and would be the ideal choice to see that sound decisions were taken. For Trishul, he was looking for a man who not only have a sound knowledge of electronics and missile welfare, but also would also communicate the complexities to his team in order to promote understanding and to earn his team's support. He found in CMDE S.R. Mohan, who sailed into a defense R&D from the Indian Navy, a talent from the detail and an almost magical power of precautions. For Agni, his dream project, he needed somebody who would tolerate his occasional melding in the running of his project. In R.N. Agarwal, he found the right person. He was an alum of MIT with a brilliant academic record and had been managing the aeronautical testing facilities at DRDL with keen professional acumen. Due to technological complexions, Akash and Nag were then considered missions for the future. The activities were expected to peak about the half a decade later. Therefore, he selected the relativity of young Prahalada and N.R. Nair for Akash and Nag. Two other young men, V.K. Saraswat and A.K. Kapoor, were made deputies to Sundaram and Mohan respectively. In those days, there was no forum in DRDL where issues of a general importance could be opened, discussed and decision debated. Scientists, it must be remembered, are basically emotional people. Once they stumble, it is difficult for them to pull themselves together. Setbacks and disappointments have always been and always will be an integral part of any career, even one in the science. However, he did not want any of the scientists to face any disappointment alone. He also wanted to ensure that none of them set their goals when they were at a low ebb. To avoid such eventualities, a science council was created, a sort of panchayat where the community would sit together and take a common decisions. Every 3 months, all scientists, juniors and the seniors, veterans and the freshers would sit together and let off steam. The very first meeting of the council was eventful. After a spell of half-hearted enquiries and expressions of doubt, one senior scientist, M.N. Rao, shot a straight question. On what basis did you select these 5 Pandavas? He meant the project directions. It was in fact expecting this question. He wanted to tell him that he found all these 5 Pandavas married to a Draupadi of opposite thinking. Instead, he told Rao to wait and see. He had chosen them to take charge of long-term program and where new storm would arise every day. Every tomorrow, he told Rao, will give opportunity to those enthusiastic people, the Agarwals, the Prahaladas, the Ayers and the Saras, to gain a fresh perspectives on their goals and strong hold on their commitments. What make a productive leader? In his opinion, a productive leader must be components in staffing. He should continuously introduce new blood into the organization. He must be adept at dealing with the problems and new concepts. The problem encountered by R&D organization typically involve trade-off among a wide varieties of known and unknown parameters. Skill in handling these complex entities is important in achieving high productivity. The leader must be capable of insulting enthusiasm in his team. He should give appropriate credit where it is due, praise publicly but criticize privately. One of the most difficult questions came from a young scientist. How are you going to stop these projects from going the devil way? He explained to him the philosophy behind IGMDP. It begins with the design and ends in a development. The participation of the production centers and uses Agni's right from the design stage has been ensured, and there was no question of going back till the mission system has been successfully deployed in the battlefield. While the progress of farming teams and organization work was going on, he found that the space available at DRDL was grossly inadequate to meet the enchanted requirements of IGMPD. Some of the facilities would have to be located at nearby sites. The missile integration and checkout facilities built during the devil phase consisted only of a 120 square meters shed thickly polluted with the pigeons. Where was the space and the facility to integrate the 5 missiles which could arrive here shortly? The environmental test facility and the Avicon's laboratory were equally cramped and ill evacuated. He visited the nearby Imrat Kancha area. It used to be the test range for anti-tank missiles developed by DRDL decades ago. The terrain was barren. There were hardly any trees and dotted with large boundary typical of the Deccan plateaus. He felt as if there was some tremendous energy trapped in these stones. He decided to locate the integrations and checking out facilities needed for the missile projects here. For the next 3 years, this became his mission. He drew up a proposal to establish a model high technology research center with very high advanced technical facilities like an internal instruments laboratory, full-scale environment and electronic welfare, that is EMI or EMC, test facility, a composite procession center, highly enthapacally facilities, and a state-of-the-art missile integration and a checkout center. By any standard, this was a gigantic task, and although different brands of expertise, grit and the determination were required to realize this project, goals and objectives has already been decided upon. Now they had to be shared with a large number of people from various agencies through the problem solving and the communication process that the leaders of the team must build and maintain. Who would be the most suitable person to do so? He saw almost all the required leadership qualities in M.V. Suryakant Rao. Then, as a large number of the agencies would participate in the research center emirate, that is RCI, someone had to protect higher article sensitives. He selected Krishna Menon, who was in his mid-30s, to complement Suryakant Rao, who was in his late 50s at the time. Krishna Mohan would encourage involvement rather than relying on obedience and monitoring people at their workplaces. According to the establishment procedure, he approached the military engineering services for the RCI constructions work. They said it would take 5 years to complete the task. The matter was discussed in depth at the higher level in the Ministry Defence, and a landmark decision to entrust the responsibility of a building defence structures to an outside construction company was taken. He liaised with the Survey of India and the National Remote Sensing Agency for the inspection of the counter maps and for obtaining aerial photographs of the Emirate Kancha to prepare a layout for the approach roads and the location of the facilities. The Central Ground Water Boards identified 20 locations amid the rock to the tap water. Infrastructures to provide 40 MVA power and 5 million liters of water per day was planted. It was also at the time that Colonel S.K. Shalvan, a mechanical engineer with boundless energy, joined him. In the final phase of the construction, Shalvan discovered an ancient place of worship along the boulders. It seems to him that this place was blessed. Now that he had started working on the designs of missile system and development has already committed on their integration and checkouts. The next logical step was to look for a suitable site for missile flight trials. With Sahar also in Andhra Pradesh, the search for a suitable site spread toward the eastern coastal line and finally ended at Balashore in Orissa. A site along a northeastern coast was identified for a national test range. Unfortunately, the entire project ran into rough weather because of the political issues raised around the evacuation of the people living in that area. He decided therefore to create an internal infrastructure adjustment to the Professor Experimental Establishment, that is PXE, at Chandipur in Balashore districts of Orissa. A funding of rupees 30 crores has been given to construct the range called the Interim Test Range, that is ITR. Dr. H.N. Ramarao and his team did an excellent job of working out innovative and cost-effective specializations for electro-optical tracking instruments, a tracking telescope system and an instrumental tracking radar. Lieutenant General R.S. Deshwal and Major General K.N. Singh took charge of creating the launch pad and range infrastructure. There was a beautiful bird sanctuary in the Chandipur. He asked the engineers to design the test range without disturbing it. Creating the RCI was perhaps the most satisfying experience of his life. Developing this center of the excellence of the missile technology was asking to joy of a potter shaping aircraft of lasting beauty from the modern clay. Defense Minister R. Venkatraman visited DRDL in September 1983 to apprise himself of the activities of IGMDP. He advised his to list all the resources he needed to achieve his goals, overlooking nothing, and then he included in his list our own positive imaginations and the faith. What you imagine is what will transpire. What do you believe is what you will achieve, he said. Both Dr. Arunachalam and he saw in the origin hen possibilities stretching out before IGMPD, and his enthusiasm proved infectious. They were excited and encouraged to see the best professionals in the country gravitating towards IGMDP, who would not want to associate with a winner. The word has eventually got around that the IGMDP was born winner. We are at a meeting laying down the targets for 1984 when a news came from Dr. Braham Prakash's death on the evening 3rd January at Bombay. It was a great emotional loss for him. For him, he had the privilege of working under him during the most challenging periods of his career. His compassion and the humility were exemplary. His healing touch the day of the failure SLV E1 flight surfaced in his memory, serving to deepen his sorrow. If Professor Sarabhai was a creator of VSSC, Dr. Braham Prakash was the executor. He had narrated the institution when it was most needed nourishment. Dr. Braham Prakash played a very important role in shaping his leadership skill. In fact, many associations with him was a turning point in his life. His humility mellowed him and helped him discard his aggressive approach. His humility did not consist merely in belonging the most about his talent or virtues, but in respecting the dignity of all those who worked under him and in recognizing the fact that no one is infallible, not even the leader. He was an intellectual giant with a frail construction. He had a childlike innocence, and he always considers him as a saint among the scientists. During this period of resonance at DRDL, an altitude control system and an on-board computer developed by P. Banerjee, R.V. Ramansai and the team was almost ready. The success of this effort was very vital for any indigenous missile development program. All the same, they had to have a missile start to test in this important system. After many brainstorming sessions, he decided to improvise a devil mission to test the system. A devil mission was assembled, many modifications made. Extensive subsystems testing was done, and the missile checkout system was reconfigured. After installing a makeshift launcher, the modified and the extended range devil missile was fired on 26 June 1984 to flight test the first indigenous strap-down integral guidance system. The system met all the requirements. This was the first and a very significant step in the history of the missile development, which had so far between restricted to reverse engineering towards designation our own systems. A long denied opportunities was at last utilized by the missile scientists at DRDL. The message was loud and clear: we could do it. It did not take long for the message to reach Delhi. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi expressed her desire to personally apprise herself of the progress of IGMDP. The entire organization was filled with an aura of excitement. On 19th July 1984, Srimati Gandhi visited DRDL. The Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was a person with tremendous sense of pride in herself, in her work, in her country. It demeaned it on honor to receive her at DRDL. She has instilled some of her own pride into her otherwise more frame of mind. She was immensely conscious that she was the leader of 800 million people. Every step, every gesture, every movement of her hand was optimized. The instant in which she shelled her work in the field of guiding missiles boosted the whole morale immensely. During that 1 year that she spent at DRDL, she covered a wide-ranging aspects of IGMDP, from the flight system plan to multiple development laboratories. In the end, she addressed 2000-strong DRDL committee. She asked for a schedule of a flight system that we are working on. When you are going to go the flight test, Prateek? Srimati Gandhi asked. Then he said on June 1987. She immediately responded, let me know what is needed to accelerate the flight schedule. She was scientific and technological result fast. You fast pace of work is the hope of the entire nation, she said. She also told him that the emphasis of IGMDE should be the only one on schedule but also on the pursuance of excellence. No matter what you achieve, you should never be completely satisfied and should always be searching for a ways to prove it, she added. Within a month, she demonstrated her interest and support by spending the newly appointed Defense Minister S.B. Chavan to review his project. Srimati Gandhi followed-up approach was not only impressive, it was effective too. Today, everyone associated with Aerospace Research Center in our country knows the excellence in synopsis with IGMDP. Thank you.